Hello, welcome to the StarCityGames.com Players Championship 2016 edition. I'm here with 2015 Players Champion Jim Davis. How you doing, sir?
Excellent, excellent.
What are you feeling coming into this tournament? You know, the first time, 2014, you had a rough go of it. You came back ready to go. You took down the whole thing. Now you're the defending champion. Any pressure?
No, I'm pretty happy. It's kind of like the end of a really, really exciting year for us. I mean, obviously, team's going great. The year's going great. Streaming's gone great. It's just kind of like big build up to the end of the year. Just happy to be here. And then not happy to be here in the sense that I'm happy to be playing, but happy to be here just like with all the players hanging out and playing an awesome tournament. And just ready to roll.
All right. Well, there's three formats. We're going to talk about Legacy today with you. Sultai Delver, kind of your go-to Legacy deck. And, as of late, you want to open with it. Last year.
Yes.
Had some decent finishes with it this year. We're going to go ahead and talk about it again because this is kind of your deck.
Definitely.
We have Delver of Secrets, Namesake card, Deathrite Shaman, Dark Confidant. Here's the real difference, I think, when you start breaking down the Delver decks between the threats. And Dark Confidant, along with Tarmogoyf, is kind of what separates Sultai from the others.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I've been on Dark Confidant for forever now. I know people don't like it that much. It also makes it so you can't play Delve cards, really, because obviously flipping a Tastic or Angler off of a Dark Confidant's a little painful. But it's very good against Miracles. It's good in the kind of fair matchups. And then even in the unfair matchups, like, as long as you can stick a Dark Confidant with a piece of Disruption, usually you can just draw enough cards where, like, they just can't ever get past your wall of Disruption. So the card's great. It's also good with Deathrite Shaman, too. If you can go, like, turn 1 Deathrite, turn 2, like, Dark Confidant, Wasteland them, then daze their play, the game's usually just over. So.
Right. This deck has some of the strongest openings in terms of mana and having card advantage compared to most of the Delver decks.
For sure. Absolutely.
All right, moving on, we're also going to see Vendilion Click, along with your Tarmogoyfs here, kind of rounding out your threat package.
Yep.
These are just kind of the best rates across the board. Sometimes you can go True Name Nemesis over Click. What's the decision here?
Yeah, I mean, I had the Click in the board for a while, and then I decided just to free up a sideboard slot by putting the Click in the main. They're pretty similar. I mean, True Name in this deck is not nearly as good as it would be in like a equipment-based deck, because it's kind of just a 3-1 unblockable that can't really be killed, which isn't often fast enough. Leah Volta card I could have considered for this slot as well, but I just went with the Click. It's just kind of Old Faithful.
And we'll kind of move into your spells, and Disruption, counter spells, removal is where we're going in here. Disfigure, Spell Pierce, kind of keep them off balance along with Stifle. Here you got 3 copies, kind of interesting choice here. This card's kind of falling off the radar in the Grixis builds. It was kind of the best card, in the Teamer builds, but you have 3 here.
Yeah, I mean, the Disfigure and the Stifle was a concession to, like, just being as lean as possible. I think Brad played the deck at an open this year with, like, the Hymn to Torok version. And, like, the hymns are just kind of clunky. It adds more 2s to your deck, and I like keeping the kind of lower base that the Teamer deck has, where you're kind of stifling and you're just playing a lot of 1-mana efficient things. I mean, Disfigure is also kind of like your Lightning Bolt. And just keeping it lean, keeping the mana disruption. And then a card like Stifle is obviously not a very powerful Magic card, unless you're countering a fetch land. But with like Dark Confidant, you kind of can recoup the cards, and it's just a cheap thing to do to put them off balance.
Ponder here going to go along with your other cantrip. Brainstorm, as we see on the next slide. As we kind of round out your blue spell package here, we'll also have Force of Will Days, as you kind of expect in the Delver decks.
Yes.
Abrupt Decay here, the other reason you're playing Sultai, because a lot of decks, have access to black for, Cabal Therapies or different kind of removal spells or Lightning Bolt. You're playing Abrupt Decay, kind of answers everything.
Right, yeah, so we can actually kill Tarmogoyf, whereas typically the Grixis and Teamer versions of it I can't, which is pretty good. It doesn't kill Gurmag Angler, which just can be an issue, but with Disfigure you can often beat it in combat. You can just counter it if possible, and we have sideboard answers for that as well.
Sure. Going through the rest of the deck here, we see these are all kind of regulars. Then we hit the mana base. All these Delver decks are just running a boatload of blue fetches, and then of course you have Underground Sea, Tropical Island to play your spells. Wasteland, you're a Delver deck.
Yes, yeah, it's interesting actually, because typically with your fetch land split, me and Andrew were discussing this, you want to try and choose deceptive fetch lands. So for example, in this deck you could play like Flooded Strand and Scalding Tarns, because it doesn't matter what blue fetch land they are, all that matters is they're blue. But with deck lists being public for every round of Legacy, the advantage to be gained there is pretty much irrelevant. So it's better off to go 2-2-2-2 or 2-2-2-2. So if someone like wants to Pithy Needle you or whatever in some random corner case scenario, it's just a fun little we've very, very minor thing.
Covered that with anyone playing Legacy basically has come to the same conclusion. We all need a bunch of blue fetches. We just want to spread the difference as much as possible to try to avoid any shenanigans with just random corner case cards.
Right.
Moving on to the sideboard here, Baleful Strix just a powerful card in the kind of fair, grindy matchups.
Absolutely. It's also very important because it's an artifact. So when Baleful Strix dies in combat, if you're going to become 5/6s, which is size to beat Gurmag Angler, it's size to beat Reality Smasher, it's a very important size upgrade. So it's a very important card for a lot of subtle reasons.
Now, you mentioned not having Hymn to Torok as your kind of discard spell, but you have Thoughtseize here on the board. 1 mana, keeping to your lean kind of build.
Right. It's also nice because, against the combo decks that are trying to beat your counterspell package with things like Xantid Swarm or Defense Grid, you just Thoughtseize them and, that they're kind of oh, no, and so it kind of has a second angle of attack. You don't want too many of that effect because, discard and counterspells is usually not a good combination, but it's enough to kind of throw them off of their anti-counterspell plans.
Sure. Surgical Extraction, your Graveyard Hate as we kind of move on to the rest of the cards here. Dismember, Disfigure, more removal, then Marsh Casualty is kind of your sweeper of choice here.
Right, so there's a lot of hedging here. I mean, we have the casualties, the Disfigure, and then you can see the Dread of Night on the next slide, where it's they're all good against decks like Death and Taxes and Elves, but obviously Dread of Night is targeted towards Death and Taxes.
Sure.
Marsh Casualties is more targeted towards Elves, because kicking it is a very real thing you can do with Deathrite Shamans and just the game going a little bit longer. So, and then Disfigure, I was trying to decide if Disfigure should be the second Casualties or the second Dread of Night, and I decided just to split the difference and play a Disfigure instead. It's also good in the Delver matchups.
Right.
So a lot of hedging going on.
Yep, got all your bases covered. Then a Maelstrom Pulse and others kind of catch-all answer. Things Abrupt Decay can't hit, this can.
Correct.
Pithing Needle, just another go-to card, shuts down Planeswalkers, just random things.
Top is the big one out of Miracles. If you can turn off a Miracles player's top, it's a very, very different game.
Okay, so what do you think the Legacy metagame is going to look like? You're kind of accustomed to playing this deck, very comfortable with it. What do you expect coming into this tournament? What do you think the Legacy metagame is going to be?
A lot of Delver decks. I mean, I can't imagine Joe Set wouldn't play Miracles. He's kind of him and Caleb are kind of the obvious ones. Caleb playing Storm and Joe playing Miracles. It's a weird format because with only 3 matches and you're playing in a tournament with 3 formats, you have to bend somewhere and just be all right, I'm just going to play my deck in Legacy and worry about the other formats. You can't get knocked out of a tournament playing Legacy, and you can in Standard and Modern, most important standards. So I feel like Legacy is sort of the format where you kind of just play what you know, and most people are going to play whatever they're comfortable with. So it's a lot of Delver decks, Miracles. Maybe a surprise here or there, but I don't expect any crazy whoa, where'd that come from?
Sure.
So it's pretty much the most basic of the formats, I feel like, in this tournament.
All right, well, Comfort's the name of the game. If you want to open with it, you got a Players' Championship win under your belt with it. Wish you the best of luck as you kind of go for number 2 here.
Appreciate it.
Jim Davis, I'm Nick Miller. Stay tuned to StarCityGames.com all weekend long for the action here at the Players' Championship.